Good morning everyone and welcome to this webinar hosted by Agilisys in conjunction with Enfield Council. My name is Nicola Hammond from Agilisys and I'll be moderating the webinar for today. The title for our webinar is Getting Ahead of Your Arrears and aims to discuss how local authorities can adopt innovative solutions to chase down outstanding arrears. We're really delighted to be joined by Jeff Waterton from Head of Collection at Enfield Council, who will outline the steps that he took to turn around the council's arrears situation, making them the third highest performing borough for arrears cash collection in England. I'd also like to welcome our second speaker, Ian Biggerdike from Agilisys, who has been working with Jeff and the team at Enfield for the last 3 years. Before we get started, there are a few housekeeping points to make. If you have a question to ask Jeff or Ian, please go to the box on your screen and simply type it in. We will host a full Q&A session after both Jeff and Ian have spoken. The entire webinar is also being recorded, so if you miss anything or think a colleague would be interested in hearing it, the recording of the webinar will be available to listen again, and I'll be giving you more details at the end of the webinar about how you can access that and get hold of it. So without further ado, let's get started. Jeff, if I could come to you first, welcome. Could you give us a little bit of background and set the context for us about Enfield Council?
Morning, Nick. Yes, Enfield is the fifth largest London borough out of the London boroughs, population of over 320,000. Like a lot of London boroughs, we have areas of prosperity and severe deprivation. From a Revs and Bens point of view, council tax and business rates are in the top 10% in the country in terms of size. But actually the borough's changed a lot over the last few years with the introduction of local housing allowance, which has affected the private sector market, and we now pay over £300 million in housing benefit, which is a huge amount of money, and we have one of the highest working age council tax support caseloads in the UK. So Enfield's a big borough, but lots of issues.
Okay, and can you tell us a little bit more about Enfield's specific debt collection situation prior to forming this partnership with Agilisys? Yeah,
we had to introduce two systems in quick succession a few years ago. So we went from ICL rates to Pericles, and then unfortunately Pericles got bought out by Northgate, so we then had to do another implementation for council tax and benefits to Civica in 3 or 4 years. Now this took quite a lot of resource, and during that time our arrears started to increase, particularly at the post-bailiff stage. So that, at a time of changing demographics from owner-occupied to private tenants in Enfield, left us with quite a headache.
Okay, and so it was probably a bit of a turning point for Enfield, was it, or did it reach a bit of a crux? What was kind of the turning point for you?
Yeah, unfortunately for Enfield, we were named and shamed as having one of the top worst arrears in London, and in fact in Enfield, in England, which obviously brought the matter to a head. So at that point, this was 4 years ago, we decided to really look at our approach to collection and set up a project to reduce arrears at Enfield and really bring in the private sector to try and help us through that period.
So that brings us nicely on to really how you went about finding a solution, and perhaps you can tell us about how you were introduced to Agilisys.
Yeah, it was a bit of good fortune, as sometimes these things are. Agilisys had presented to London Council's Capital Ambition programme, and they had offered a debt solution, a new debt solution for councils at the time. So following that approach to London councils, I got in touch with Agilisys to ask them what they could offer. And really what we were looking for is a way to analyse our arrears, to know what was collectible, what wasn't, and then have a solution for moving that forward and trying to work to collect that debt. So it's something we couldn't do in-house. We didn't have the tools to do that sort of analysis, and Agilisys at the time were offering a similar sort of product.
And Ian, if I could bring you in at this point, what experience have Agilisys had in this area before?
Well, Agilisys as a company have had 15 years experience working in the public sector to transform services for millions of citizens. We do work in the private sector as well, but public sector is our main focus. And we've got some big contracts with revenue collection across the country. Two of the larger ones we've got, firstly, we run a business process outsource solution for the London Borough of Barking and Dagenham, where we collect all of their council tax and business rates, and we administer their housing benefit service as well. So we gained a lot of experience in the early days there with that contract. We also had a contract, or still have actually, a contract with Hammersmith and Fulham, where it was called Extended Revenue Collection, where we collected in-year and previous year debts on 12 different areas across the council, and it was from there, the success we were getting there, we decided to market revenue collection as a product. So and since then we've had a load of clients across the country. A good client in the Midlands is Sandwell, and a good example of where we've done quite well there is they gave us £7 million worth of arrears that was on a report for members to sign off to write off, and because we were a partner with them in building schools for the future, they decided to be one of our pilot areas, and from that 7 million that was earmarked to be written off, we're pushing now to have collected nearly £1 million of that, and that was just going to go. So what a massive change that has made to Sandwell, to receive that sort of money that they weren't expecting. We've also had great success in Enfield, and obviously Jeff is going to talk a bit more. It's better to hear from Jeff about that than me. So we've had some great success at Enfield as well, and we've got several clients, 8-9 clients up and down the country. It's not only arrears services we offer. We also offer an in-year service as well, which is called Stop the Knock. Everyone knows there's a time and a place for enforcement agents. Of course there is, but we work in the early stage once a liability order has been secured to ensure that only the correct cases go to enforcement agents. We work with the customers to create sustainable payment arrangements. And of course at this stage I'll just add it was award winning. So we won the Excellence in Debt Management award from the IRRV, which I'm extremely proud of.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. And just to go back to some of the points that Jeff was covering earlier and what he was actually looking for to help with the arrears in terms of a solution, could you just probably give us a very top level outline of what Agilisys revenue collection is and the approach that you actually take?
Yes. So the service we're offering to local authorities, and indeed the service we offer to Jeff, one of the first things we do, which I think is quite unique in the marketplace, is we offer a free debt diagnostic, and we gave that to Jeff. So we'll take any arrears that's on any council's books, we'll take that away, we'll analyse it, we'll look at how many people we're likely to find. We have access to the 3 credit reference agencies, not just one, so you tend to get about 50% uplift by using all 3, and we have a contract in with all 3. So we'll look at the confidence of finding the person, and then we'll look at the debtor's propensity to pay, so that the likelihood of them paying as well. And then using algorithms, the likelihood of finding them, the likelihood of them to pay. We then present the authority with the quality of their debt, the likelihood for enrichment, and based on our experience of portfolios of similar nature, how much they're likely to collect. So even if they didn't pursue us using us to do the collection, that's a fantastic insight report to have for budgeting purposes and to know what you're likely to collect from your arrears portfolio.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so coming back to Jeff then, the partnership with Agilisys has been formed and this analysis of the arrears situation has taken place. Can you describe some of the outcomes that you experienced or witnessed, either short-term or medium-term, and what impact that had on you, your team and the council overall?
Okay, so we gave Agilisys around £5 million of our bailiff return debt, which, as Ian said, was analysed for collection. And following that, we agreed a commission rate with Agilisys on the level of commission on the money that was collected. One of the other outcomes for us is the debt that Agilisys identified as uncollectible. We were able to then move forward, and it is part of all our jobs to write off uncollectible debt. But that gave us a justification for that write-off because it had been through the private sector and identified as uncollectible. So it had been through a bailiff and through Agilisys. So we felt that was a significant improvement. In terms of collection, Ian's team identified that from our debt they would collect around £500,000, and in fact they did actually collect that over a period. So that's a substantial income to the council. And obviously the fact that we were clearing these debts down also brought our arrears down as well. Agilisys contacted our residents in a number of ways, and I have to say that we didn't get any issues with our residents that you wouldn't expect when trying to collect money. So there was no complaints about the process, more about the fact that they had to pay. So that went very smoothly, and really we're now looking to the next stage of starting again with a second sort of project and moving forward with that.
And I know that you've got a particular arrangement with the Greater London Authority which made this process even more appealing. Could you give us a bit of insight to that as well?
Following the pilot, spoke to Ian about an ongoing approach and using a framework agreement that Agilisys have through the G-Cloud framework. But we also approached the Greater London Authority, the Mayor's Office in London, who obviously benefit from our council tax collection and all the other London boroughs. And they very, very kindly agreed to fund 20% of our costs with Agilisys, as they could see the business case, because their funding was going to be matched 4 or 5 times by increased income. So we have an agreement with the GLA now in place, which allows us to charge 20% of Agilisys costs back to the GLA. And we have sent a second lot of debt off. It is more recent, and the commission rates are less because it's more collectible. So we're just starting that project now.
Okay.
Yeah, just to highlight a couple of things, to expand on a couple of things Jeff mentioned there. Firstly, the commission rate, which is Jeff has just explained, is now going to be met partly by the GLA. The commission rates we charge aren't one standard, so part of your debt diagnostic, we will look at the different segments of the debt and charge higher and lower commission rates depending on the quality of the debt and the likelihood of collecting it. So you're not paying a high amount for things that are really where we're totally confident we found the debtor and they have a high propensity to pay. So there'll be a low charge for that and a higher charge where we have to invest a bit more money to try and find the people and then to get the payment off them. The other thing, in terms of the process, what I didn't go into before, just quickly how we do it. After the debt diagnostic, we then have a contact centre which is based in Rochdale, where we have a mixture of private sector collection agents and public sector with experience of council tax housing benefits. So we're combining the best practice of both the private and the public sector in our collection strategies. We have strategy managers that do test and learn type scenarios. So what works well? If that works well in Enfield, well, let's do more of it. Anything that we then can't collect, we then manage a panel of 6 enforcement agents. So we don't just have leverage within Enfield, collect well in Enfield, you'll get more in Enfield. We have national leverage. So collect well for us, you'll get more debt across the country that we're securing. So the enforcement agents are working hard for us, that's for sure. And finally, as Jeff said, there is a framework. So you don't need to do procurements and tenders and things like that. The service is on the G-Cloud, and you just complete an order form, very simple, to procure the service.
Okay. Thank you, Ian. Just going back to, you talked about some of the outcomes and the impact that you felt at an organisational level and around the operational level. Have you got any statistics that you might like to share with us around how you did turn that debt situation around, or the arrears collection? Yeah,
we as I say, when we started looking at this, we had arrears of over £30 million. In the last 3 years, we've brought our arrears down by just under £10 million. So our arrears stand at around, for council tax, just over £20 million, which is a significant reduction. Our arrears cash collection for last year was just under £8 million, which puts us just below Birmingham and Liverpool in terms of national cash collection, which are obviously much larger authorities than Enfield. So this isn't just a question of writing off arrears. This is a question of a balance between writing off uncollectible arrears and high level of collection from Enfield at a time when our in-year collection rate is also going up as well. So I feel it is a good news story for both sides. And we're buying in really to Agilisys' private sector economies of scale to target residents and to keep trying to contact residents rather than sitting in our books, which we can't contact all residents. We also have a high level of council tax support debt now at a very low value, which again is ideal for a phone call or a text from Agilisys to just prompt payment.
And as you said, you've seen some great results, and it does appear to be a good news story. So what's next for Enfield Council with regards to collecting arrears and your programme looking forward? You're able to take a much more long-term view now, it would seem.
Yeah, well, for us, the framework agreement's important, the GLA funding's important. We're looking to work with Ian and Agilisys on a range of debts. So I've passed over some council former tenant arrears debt, some temporary accommodation debt, and some benefit overpayment debt, which also I manage. So we're looking for a similar approach there. Obviously, Ian's team are going to analyse that and see what's collectible and what's not. I suspect some of the temporary accommodation debt may be a struggle, but we're certainly looking at that to see the best way forward. And we've also introduced a process which again is cutting down all the admin within Enfield, where we mark an account when it's shown has gone away. We sweep these up every 3 months, pass them to Agilisys. They do a trace service for us and verifying that the person is there, which as we all know is particularly important if you're going to try and collect the money. So that process now saves us again admin time on gone away. So it's a very slick process. We collect them up. We pass about 1,000 cases every 3 months, and Agilisys do the donkey work for that. So there are some new bits of work we can do, which is all about trying to keep our debts moving, not leaving them sitting in our books, and try and keep collecting where we can. And
Ian, from what Jeff has explained and from the information you've given us, this appears to be quite an intelligent or an informed approach to collecting arrears. Can you give us a bit more detail about some of the ability or the technology that sits behind this approach?
Well, basically, we've all heard getting the right bill to the right person at the right time, and what better time to think about this sort of thing when we're all getting ready for annual billing. So basically, on the Trace and Verify service there, as I said earlier, we have access to the 3 credit reference agencies, so we can combine the results from all 3, getting ourselves a 50% uplift on the results in finding people and mobile numbers and email addresses, etc. We'll combine the best of those results, and as Jeff said, on the Trace and Verify service, anyone can go to a credit reference agency and ask them to trace, but the step further that we take it is that we also verify it. So through our power dialer and our collection agents, we then make phone calls out to try and contact these people and to verify, have you actually, do you live at this new address, that sort of stuff. So not only are you getting the results from the credit reference agency, you're getting it verified. And most importantly, it's payment by success only. So if we didn't manage to trace the person, you wouldn't pay us anyway.
Okay, great. So I think what's coming to light, Jeff, is that you felt that for what seemed a fairly unachievable task or a daunting task actually became quite a simple process, if that's fair to say. And I wondered if you could recap or maybe summarise for our participants in the webinar just the overall process. Just talk us through again those very high level steps that you took and where that value was added to Enfield.
So Agilisys are obviously one of our private sector partners, but so for Enfield we obviously have an in-house service to deal with billing, reminding and summonses and obtaining liability orders. Then we pass to our enforcement agents very quickly, and we get some debt returned by then. At that point we obviously get a chunk of debt analysed and agree a sort of collectability, and then we upload that debt through a secure website to Agilisys. Now, any debt that leaves the council does need managing. We do have to keep Agilisys informed of direct payments, and we do ask for debt back just as we do with enforcement agents. It's the same process, so we do have to have resource working with Agilisys. It's not that we hand it over and we let it go, and we manage that with Agilisys and our enforcement agents. And our third really major area where debts come back, we can write them off, and we can, when they reach a high level, we actually work with insolvency companies. So we have a sort of a three-pronged attack, but Agilisys is a very important key part to our strategy now, fits nicely between the enforcement agents and then any further action further down the line for large arrears.
Brilliant.
Just one thing I could add there. Some authorities that we work for give us access to their IT system. So if we have access, we have the experienced collection agents at our end who have worked in the public sector, council tax collection for years. So in the main, although Jeff said we do work very closely with Enfield, we do aim to handle 90-95% of the queries ourselves to prevent us having to go back to a local authority and get the questions answered. And that's enhanced if we get access to IT systems. Not all allow that, but some do.
Yeah, okay. All right, well, thank you both. I think it's probably a good time to move to some questions that we've had coming in. So we're just going to take a look at those now. Please do type any questions into the box that's on your screen whilst you're tuned into the webinar, and we'll endeavour to answer them all. Let's start by asking a question. We might have already touched on this, but how do you procure? Ian, perhaps you could just outline that for us again. You said it's available on the digital marketplace. Is that right, G-Cloud?
Absolutely, couldn't be simpler. It's on the, as you say, on the digital marketplace, which is a government-approved framework. G-Cloud, it was specifically designed to eliminate the pain of procurement exercises for local authorities. So we made sure that we were on there. It's simply an online store. It's almost like the Argos catalogue of local authority services, really. Pick which one you want, select it, place an order on the order form, and then move from there. And if anyone is interested in using the G-Cloud, we will make people available to speak with your procurement teams so that they understand how it works and so they're satisfied that all the boxes are ticked.
Great, thank you, Ian. We've got a message come in from Louis at Barnet Council who asked us, Jeff, would you mind emailing a copy of the slides to Louis? Now, all slides will be available with the recording of the webinar, so we'll make sure that everyone who's registered will get a copy of those. We have touched a little bit on this, sharing of personal data and the security of it. Jeff, can you talk about how you felt reassured and the process that went on with sharing that data?
Yeah, that security of our residents' data is obviously highly important to all boroughs. Firstly, Agilisys are an experienced player in the local government market and have several contracts with other authorities. But there was a secure upload of our data to their website, and the people who were contacting our residents were very well trained, so they were working from Agilisys on behalf of Enfield regarding council tax. So there was never any doubt that Agilisys were working for the council, and there was never any complaints around data protection or any issues like that. So that went very smoothly.
Brilliant. Thank you, Jeff. We've got a message coming from Sonia from Herefordshire Council who's asked, when the arrears were reduced by just under 10 million, how much of that was for write-off? If you're able to.
Okay, so our arrears were over 30 million 3 years ago, and we were collecting around £5 million a year in cash collection, and we were writing off about £4 million in debt write-off. So we raise around £8 million a year in our new debt. So as long as we're collecting and writing off more than that new debt coming in, our arrears were coming down. So actually, to start with, it was about 50-50, but now, as I said, last year we collected £8 million and we wrote off about 3.5. We did have a bad debt provision when we were looking at our arrears of £13 million, which is a lot of money for councils to set aside. Our bad debt provision now is £8 million, so the amount we're providing for our debts has come down significantly as well.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Jeff. We've had a question come in again from Herefordshire. What 3 credit reference agencies do you use? Ian, can you pick this one up for us?
Yeah, that's quite simple to answer. We have access into the 3 sort of main players in terms of CRAs, Experian, Equifax and Call Credit. And we also have a specialised tracing agent that we work in partnership with as well that can do manual desktop type tracing on our behalf as well.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you.
I could add the figures that I'm quoting are all within the government QRC returns, which we all know and love in local government. So if you do want to look at Enfield's performance or other boroughs, it's all there in the quarterly return or the yearly return that the government produces.
Great, thank you, Jeff. So, just looking, keep your questions coming in. We just wanted to really, I guess, share any final thoughts from both Jeff and Ian. Jeff, I know that you and our participants today will know that this is just one area that councils may be facing or need a solution or just one of the many challenges. Can you just give some last thoughts that you might have about tackling this kind of situation?
Yeah, we know there's not an easy answer to debt collection now, and as I said before, our debts are changing with a lot of our residents who were on council tax benefit, who used to receive 100% benefit, who now in Enfield actually the maximum for working age is now 75%. So we have to collect 25% of the council tax, and that's a significant amount of money, 6 or 7 million. These are not people who we would normally just send to enforcement agents. So we have to change our processes, and the private sector are able to analyse customers, the collectability of debt from customers. They're able to put call centres and resource behind it to contact debtors, which in Enfield we couldn't do. We have bought credit reference information before, but it's difficult for us to manage that once we've got it.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. We have had a couple more questions coming in. We've got one from Richard at Harrow. Ian, this might be one for you. The data you are provided, is this a propensity to pay exercise, or is it other data used? And then is this data then aligned with your enforcement agents?
So the data we use for the, if you mean for the diagnostic, it's a mixture of the likelihood of contactability. So how many email addresses have we found? Have we found a mobile number for the person? Have we found a landline number? Things like that. Are they living as stated, or do we have confidence in a forwarding address? And that confidence has to be that we are sure. So we'll do all the soft verification when we do our collection. But obviously, are we absolutely sure that if we're saying a person has moved from A to B, is it definitely that person? So the more data that authorities can give us, the easier it is for us to be confident that we found somebody and where they've moved to, and then charge a lesser commission because we know where they've gone. So it's a mixture of the contactability, and then when you have contacted them, how likely are they to pay? And Jeff did mention on like a no trace pot where we've struggled to trace. That doesn't mean automatic write-off. We can then still do further investigation, manual investigation, and authorities can pick some of the higher debts or any particular debts that they might want to us to take that route to really go that extra mile to find those taxpayers.
Okay, great. Richard, hopefully that's answered the question, but if there's anything else to come in, please do drop us a message on the system. I think probably the best thing for us to do is just really to start to bring things to a close. We will be sending participants who have taken part today a feedback note, which would be really grateful if you could return and let us know what other webinars you would be interested in joining. Really, Jeff, I'd like to thank you today for being here with us and sharing your fascinating story, really. And as I said, this recording will be available in the next 48 hours, and we will be sending out a mail to everyone. Was there anything else that either of you would just like to cover or end with?
As we're all facing austerity, I'm not sure if austerity is over yet, but local government has big cuts coming in. My service on council tax had 43 staff a year ago and now has 15. So we have to really come up with different ways to provide the service. I'm not suggesting this is the panacea for everything, but we certainly have to adapt as we lose resource, and to ensure that we don't lose money that we could collect.
Ian, anything else from you?
I suppose just a simple summary from me. It's easy to procure. As Jeff said, if you don't have the resources, we're there to help. You can, for want of a better phrase, chuck it over the fence to us. We've got the public and private sector collection agents that can deal with all the queries and know the best collection. We've got strategy managers that will test and know what works best within a particular area. One thing I didn't say, when we do panel manage our enforcement agents, I think it's very important that, because every authority will want to know that their customers are being treated fairly, we don't just allocate collection based on performance. So if anyone who collects the most doesn't necessarily get all the debt, it could just, we also monitor their conduct and how they are treating the customers. So if we get complaints and things like that, even though they collect more, we may not allocate to that authority. So looking after customers is key as well.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay, if anyone else has any comments or questions, please put them into the system, and we'll endeavour to follow up. If anyone does have any questions directly of Jeff or of Ian, please leave your details in the comments box, and again we'll follow up on those. Otherwise, thank you all for attending today's webinar, and we hope that you join us again for another one in the near future. Have a great day, everyone.